Segmented trust or trust. Do you trust someone? I think the response has to be nuanced for it to be intelligent. Do you trust me? Do you trust me to be able to speak English? Well, the answer to that is pretty obvious. Do you trust that I have a physical body? Again, fairly obvious. Do you trust me to speak Spanish? Do you trust me to do good brain surgery? Do you trust me not to sleep with your partner? See, these things are unknowns. You don't have enough data. Now, a good reference point or starting point are probability fields. For example, in many Western cultures, the probability of divorce is about 50%. Now, I think it's higher by now, but let's just use that as an example. Now, in the absence of data, you would trust me intelligently to stay married 50%. With more data, you can increase the nuance of this. For example, if you have segmented data about probability fields, which reveals that people who have parents who are married for at least 40 years only have a 20% instead of a 50% divorce rate, could lead you to ask how long my parents have been married. Now, what we're dealing with here is abstractions or probability fields. And a reasonable default is that an individual, if you gather no more nuanced and detailed information, will behave consistently with the probability fields of their culture, their gender, their age range. For example, do you trust a teenager to drive your car safely? Well, what are the statistical odds of that happening? And the key is to bring a conscious, nuanced methodology into the answer. Do you trust me? Yes. Do you distrust me? Yes. Are you uncertain about trust in certain areas? Yes. So how do we take this somewhat useful concept into an actual practical experience? When you have a question, do you trust someone in a given situation? Well, you've got the probability field, which you can become informed around. You want to know how many people cheat on their partners in your county? Call up a therapist and get a sense, like how many of your clients cheat on their partner. It'll be useful information. If you want to know how confident you can be in your ability to create an experience with a new human being in your life, of feeling completely loved and supported, or of making your partner feel completely loved and supported, you can look at your statistics. How often have you felt completely loved and supported? How often has a partner told you that as a result of your behavior, your state of being, they feel completely loved and supported? And if you can trust that person or those people to have integrity as opposed to putting on a game face, to just, people have personas that they're comfortable in, that make them feel safe. And very often what they'll do is diverge from what their own felt experience is, which they are less comfortable in, to present a mask of what the persona they're comfortable within, which is a protective persona, to mask against the unknown, fears, trauma. And, for example, a hippie chick, that could be a persona that an individual feels comfortable in. They were able to escape feelings of being trapped in pain by being free in that persona. They feel like they're not a threat to most people with tie-dye shirts and all that, who smile at them rather than challenge them. So a hippie chick, a persona. Well, the problem comes in if you ask someone who's in hippie chick defense, what do you feel about this? And there's not anything on the line. They're not spending money, because people tend to be honest with their values and priorities when they're spending money. They're not spending a substantive amount of time. People tend to be honest when they have to when it requires a lot of time. When it's a legal commitment like a marriage, people tend to be more honest. But if you ask someone just in the abstract, like, what do you think about this or this? And it's this minimal commitment. Hippie chick defense might say, okay, well, what would a hippie chick say? Oh, hippie chicks are positive, so let me say something positive. Hippie chicks talk in generalities about the universe, so let's talk about, that. They smile, so let me smile. And they look coquettish. Okay, let me look coquettish and smile. And say, well, I think if it was meant to be, and if you partner with the universe, and I think that would be a good idea. Okay, so absolutely nonsense in terms of making a decision about that, not necessarily referencing any of their own feelings, but maintaining the persona of the hippie chick. Now, everyone has personas. There's the persona of the businessman. Now, the businessman doesn't reference what they feel, doesn't reference what they want to be doing. Maybe they'd rather be taking a nap, but they have a certain shaved haircut, they have a certain suit, they have a certain car, they drive up in a certain way, they touch their face thusly, they make sure not to smile because business people don't smile except when they're making a sale. So there's a persona around the businessman. And so anything that adds to that persona, the briefcase, the this, the that, the other, is not about, do I really need a briefcase more than just carrying these papers in a brown paper envelope the 10% of the time I need to do that? Or would that persona have a briefcase? I'm a landscape contractor professionally, and so I notice that sometimes, clients will have a persona around what it is to be a male American contractor in my age group. And if I keep in that persona, it sometimes will make a client more comfortable than if I go wild philosopher on them, or just be exactly as I'm actually feeling that day. How are you doing? Let's see, I've got a headache, feel miserable, mild levels of anxiety, and I'm looking forward to helping you because and when I walked in, I saw you have a sensitive child in the, she's obviously in the 10% category that's highly sensitive, and I'm wondering how she's doing in this culture. I'm wondering how she's doing, and I kind of feel sympathetic towards her. Given the statistics that 90% of sensitive children are in more pain due to the insensitivity of the culture around them. And, I just want to make sure that anything we do is accommodating your daughter. And you're not in that highly sensitive category. So frankly, I'm less interested in you than I am in your daughter, who's not paying the bills. And I'm also aware that this is not the kind of thing that helps to make a sale. So I'm curious how you will behave in this interaction. If I just say, that's me, meaning that's what's going on all on the inside and that's on the outside, this may make someone uncomfortable because they're in a client shell. Now, if they're in a direct human being shell, they may say, I'm worried about my daughter too, and screw all these roles, and let's just see how we can bring happiness. How can I give you a little tiger balm for your neck? Can I give you some tea? Can I give you... Would you enjoy it? How about we invite my daughter into the meeting? And let's just de-role here and de-persona and be human beings who care about other human beings, and who may or may not do some business together in one form or another, if that makes sense. So how about that? But this is in a psychologically illiterate culture, meaning where all of this stuff is going on instinctively, and it's not going on in plain view, and as a result, it's not being talked about, and as a result of not being talked about, one is not learning navigational skills around what's not being talked about. It's the pink elephant in the room of emotional and cultural and relational illiteracy without being talked about. So it's a pink elephant that doesn't get talked about. Now, can you trust any of this? You see, it's very, very segmented. And so what can you trust about me so far? If you were to rank candor, could you trust me to be candid? If you were to rank sincerity, what would be your metric? What's your method of drilling into that? And how would you rank that 1 to 10? How would you rank it? And how confident are you in your ability to rank? Meaning, how many people have you ranked? How many people have you been intimate with enough where you not only see them through their own eyes, you see them through your eyes, that's a given, but you see them through their own eyes, so you can see the gap. In most relationships, there's 4 people in the room. There's how you see yourself, that's one person. There's how they see you, that's another person. And they're, in an unconscious culture such as ours, these two may be miles apart. You see yourself as generous and sweet and doing everything you can. They see you as a nuisance. You see yourself as inadequate and nobody likes you. They think you're a nice person but don't know how to approach you. These are miles apart in relationally, culturally, emotionally illiterate culture. So you have how you see them, and then you have how they see themselves. So you got these 4 people. Now, there's truth or probable truth in all 4 people. Meaning there's almost certainly something that someone sees about you that you don't see about yourself. There's almost certainly something about them that they don't see about themselves. And so if you can bring these 4 people together and integrate them, where there's actually a 5th person, there's the us. I see us like this, and you see us like this. So there's actually 5 entities whenever 2 people are gathered. Now the probable destruction comes when these 5 entities that do not get talked about, that do not get meta'd. Meta means having a conversation about the conversation. To meta a relationship, you just say, pause. Could we make, first of all, pause, could we make a culture here? Well, what's a culture? It's a recurring habit. It's a pattern of behavior. It's a pattern of thought and feeling, which come together, of course. When you behave differently, when you talk differently, you have different feelings, different body sensations. So could we meta this relationship? Let's bring in a culture, and let's first of all decide how we're going to design the culture. Meta about the meta. Well, how about we take turns bringing up things that we don't want in this culture, our culture, you and me, and how about we take turns then bring up what we do want in our culture. In our culture, we think negatively, so You ask someone, what's the ideal culture you would like with me? 99% in America, you will not get, well, I think I'd like a culture of complete transparency. I would like a culture of intimacy. I'd like a culture of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 balance where my heart, mind, and body, we spend an hour on the heart, an hour on our bodies, an hour on our minds. I like the symmetry of that more than talking heads for 6 hours, no body contact, no deep emotion, no vulnerability. How about that? No. You ask someone in America, what's your ideal culture with me, in a relationship with me? And after they're done looking at their watch and a certain percentage have run off and said they'll get back to you and never do and all that, you're going to then find the remainder say, well, what I don't want, I hate people who are rude. Well, so does everyone. So what does rudeness look to you? Well, rude, interrupting. So how many seconds, how many half seconds do you need before you feel you are given spacious time to finish your sentence? Is it that you say, I'm done? Is it that someone asks? Is it that there's a half-second pause? Is it that a quarter-second pause? Is it a 1-second pause? Have you ever felt interrupted with me? Well, this will throw a wrench in the space, because what we're bringing is actual presence to the other person as they are and inviting a coming together, so that what you are calling rude in your mind, that you're not telling anyone else, is shared in the space. And what I'm calling rude, well, what I find rude is if you jump in without saying, may I jump in? Like, I'd like may I jump in? And no, I'm going to complete this and I'll let you jump in a few seconds. So that's what I call rude. And you call rude anything jumping in after more than or less than a half-second pause, or if it's clear you haven't finished the thought. Or what I find rude is if someone doesn't repeat back what they've heard and say, I feel what you're saying, and this and that and this. So this is my definition of rude, and this is my definition of rude. So what's going to be our definition of rude? Could we? Oh, no, I don't have time for this. This is weird. Okay, so what's your definition of weird? No, see you later. No more time to discuss the definition of weird, so that's weird. So we have this fractious dynamic where there's really 5 presences in any two people coming together. And because we don't have the technology to disintegrate each one of those 5 separate entities and then reintegrate them mutually and intelligently so that there's only one, so that I know how you see yourself and I know how I see you. And you know that I know that this, and you know how I see you. And we know where we bend a bit, like, yes, I see your point there, but I don't see it to the same degree because I didn't have a mother who interrupted me every 3rd sentence and made me feel bad, so I'm just not as charged about that topic. You've got that zoomed in at about 500% higher resolution than me because it wasn't a big deal for me. In fact, what I didn't like was talking and then being humiliated. And so I actually appreciate it if someone else jumps in because they're taking the risk. They're putting their thoughts on the line. And I feel very comfortable waiting to see if anyone judges them and then just saying, me too, me too, when I see that it's safe, that I'm not going to be judged for this, that, and the other. And so this is what's comfortable for me. So all of this is in the an aspect of segmented trust. Do you trust me to see you the way you see yourself? Do you trust me to not agree with this point or to agree? See, this you have to ask. And you have to ask the kind of person who will answer because their sense of identity is more relevant to their principles, in this case, the principle of transparency, the principle of integration, the principle of of authenticity. So these principles, and they're referencing those principles and talking about things that make sense within those principles. Well, then you can trust that person that you ask in that area to see you in that way that they say. So, no, I don't see you this, and this. And I'm having this with my wife, where she will apologize for things that aren't real. And she will not apologize for the things that are real, to me, of course. Now, so she'll write an apology to me. I'm sorry that I'm not as sexy as you'd like. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've spent time with 100 lovers. You're in the top 10% of sexy lovers of anyone I've ever met. This is a strange apology. But then I think, what am I irritated about is, she's Filipina. Oh, she's not fluent in English. And so half the time that she speaks, the first go-around, I have no idea what she's talking about. This is irritating, and it's not her fault. I picked a Filipina, and I'm very happy with my choice, and there's pros and cons, meaning I'm not going to have this level of fluency with someone's second language, and with her in particular. Now, that's not why I married her. I did not marry her for the ease of this type of fluent conversation. I married her for a whole host of reasons that I'm very happy with, none of which tie in with this, and it is irritating. I take full responsibility for it, but it is irritating. Particularly when I'm tied up in something. I don't transition well. I'm tied up in something. And she jumps in with a non sequitur and says, she the willow and that one over there. And it's like, okay, so I've got, okay, why is this happening now? What have I got the words right? And then has she, strung them backward or forward or this, that, the other. And then there's another level of irritation, which is that she does not grasp that what she said has no context. I don't know. I'm 3 levels deep. I don't know why you've said this now. I don't know what the words meant, and I don't know I have no idea how to respond. And she will look at me expectantly as if there's no issue. Well, which tells me that she doesn't even grasp that there's an issue. Well, this is irritating. And then I don't want to be irritated by it. So I'm irritated that I'm irritated, because I don't want to be irritated at my wife, because it's not really her responsibility, given my choice, which I stand by, meaning there's plenty of amazingly unique things that make her a one-of-a-kind person in the world for me. But this is irritating. But she doesn't apologize for that, which irritates me about 5 times every day, maybe 10, to varying degrees. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just, what's that? Okay, I'll just go through the loops here. And then occasionally, when it's interrupted something, that I was busy thinking of, and, it's I don't like it on multiple levels, then it feels like a big deal. So one of the challenges is to separate in this dynamic. So we had one of these last night, which is why I'm referencing it, this multiple people in the rooms. So she's apologizing for someone who exists only in her fantasy. In her fantasy, she's not sexy to me. It's an interesting fantasy, and many women are able to hang on to this fantasy despite the evidence. Meaning I have absolutely no qualms, and I'm totally free to get a divorce, to go spend time with someone else, anywhere in the world. I can do this. And if I strongly believe that that's the right thing to do, that that's in my interest, that there'd be more well-being coming into the world, that I'd be able to make someone else more happy than I'm able to make her, I can do that. So every single day that I'm with her is a statement that I'd rather be nowhere else. Now, I know that. And then you get into these subcategories of delusion or different people. So the first delusion is that, she's not sexy to me. It's fine if she thinks she's not sexy to herself, though. Look at the data. Look at the men that admire you and da-da-da-da-da. That's fine. But when you translate it, okay, you're not sexy to me, then you can build a story. If you believe that, then you can say, well, you did this because I'm not sexy. Well, see, now we're going deeper. We're building a structure of thought on a faulty projection that does not line up with reality remotely. Meaning, I've never once said that she wasn't sexy, and I've told her a number of times, because this will come up, that she's amazingly sexy. So, so this is an interesting thing. So this is mildly irritating because there's a recurring block, meaning I don't exist in that fantasy. Because if I existed, I wouldn't have to be. If I existed, she'd say, Dana, am I sexy or not? I'd say, well, you're in the top 10% of all the women and lovers I've ever met and spent time with. And that's way good enough for me, because I didn't marry you for your body. I married you for all kinds of amazing experiences that we have. And, if you look through my girlfriend portfolio of, all the people I've spent time with, you'll find 50-year-old women, you'll find fat women, you'll find, black women, you'll find this. I'm not marrying or spending time with any of these people for their body. I'm spending time with people that I have rich, multidimensional experiences with, and I haven't married any of them, and I've married you. So the evidence is a little bit shaky that you're so unattractive and da-da-da. Now, the fact that I'm regularly irritated about this or that or the other, in a context where I turn fear into irritation, in a context where I have a traumatic history which brings fear up easily, means that it's highly likely that no matter who I spend time with, I will have bursts of fear that rapidly get transmuted over into irritation. And because I'm candid and I want to include, I express those even when I know they're not fair. For example, feeling irritated that, lo and behold, you've never spoken with the fluency that is ideal for me, which is a given since I've married outside my culture. And of course, this hasn't changed in 24 hours. No. So it's a response that I need to include you in so it doesn't build up, so I can release it. But I know it's not your fault. Heaven help me. See, this is the way I also try and shake it, because she has a little bit of a tendency to take on other people's stuff. So I say, well, let's just say that you are a bad girlfriend or whatever in your eyes because you don't speak fluent English. Well, how much of a bad husband does that make me that I speak 3 words of Tagalog? Why don't we flip it around and say that I'm a terrible husband because I don't speak Tagalog, and you're doing 80% of the work here by speaking English. And as the typical Western, egotistical, arrogant archetype of chauvinism, there's been far too much of assuming that, you go to these wonderful places around the world and you'll find Westerners irritated at the natives for not speaking their language. You take a Thai person to America who starts jabbering in Thai. You take a Filipina to America who starts jabbering in Tagalog, and the same American is going to be angry that they're expected to speak another language. In other words, it's so egocentric culturally. There's so much irrational arrogance around language that it's commonplace, it's not questioned, it's absurd, and nobody should be feeling bad about that except the arrogance, meaning the Westerners should be feeling bad that they're so ignorant of their own ignorance that they expect someone to speak their language in their country and their language in their country. It's one-sided. Now, the trouble comes with chauvinism and sustained superiority-inferiority complexes that you can meet people who are just automatically and irrationally arrogant and automatically and irrationally inferior. And then they pair up and they both don't get that they're irrational. Meaning, it is irrational for a Filipina to feel any more guilt about not speaking fluent English than she feels anger at an English partner for not speaking Tagalog, which she doesn't. I mean, she's never once criticized a single one of my Tagalog words because I don't even bother saying them. That's how unbalanced that part is. So what I'm getting at is all of this has to do with trust. So what do you trust about me now? Do you trust me to have blind spots? Hopefully. Do you trust me to be arrogant? Hopefully. Do you trust me to be diffusing that arrogance to the best of my ability? Hopefully. All of those things are in view. Do you trust my girlfriend to have some level of self-doubt or self-deprecation? Hopefully, I've shared that aspect. And do you trust me to make that worse? Probably. Do you trust me to make that better? Probably. Meaning you're going to see within what I'm talking about, you're seeing both things. Meaning on the one hand, I'm bringing up things that reduce her sense of adequacy. And then on the other hand, I'm fighting to say, no. Just because I'm bringing these up and I have these feelings doesn't mean they're sane, doesn't mean they're balanced. It just means I'm having them. And I'm an American, which is a very unhealthy culture. So the fact that I'm having a default reaction based on my culture means absolutely nothing. It's probably a bad sign, frankly, given American competency in these areas. As a statistic. So if in doubt, question an American's impulses around relationship. 80% of the time, they're going to be off. So trying something new that the typical American would never do is a good sign. But, might as well try it with some intelligence. Now, this gets into trust on all levels, trust about a culture. For example, I trust the Thais to be 300% happier than Americans because that's what I observe having spent 10 years visiting Thailand. I find that I become 300% happier. The same me in that context is 300% happier. Now, I also consider them more intelligent because every single person I've interviewed is the same or much happier in Thailand than when they are in their own country, which is typically a Western country. So the Germans, the Russians, the Americans, the French, the Danish, the Swedish, the Italians that I interview, touristing or living in Thailand, 99% of them all say that they are 3 to 100 times happier in Thailand than in their countries. Now, since I felt the same thing from the moment I arrived in Thailand the first time, 10 years ago, and I've spent about 6 months of the year in Thailand for the last number of years, I think that's intelligent because I don't spend more money in Thailand. I spend less. I spend less money in Thailand to be 3 times more happy. That's value for money. Happiness. Can money buy happiness? Yes and no. If you use it to go to a place that makes you 3 times happier and have experiences that are 3 times more dimensional, more enriching, etc., that's intelligence. So I trust Thai culture to be more intelligent in translating dollars into well-being than my own country. My country spends billions and billions, trillions of dollars to make its people unhappy. Just look at the Iraq War. Who was happy because of that war? Anyone. Anyone of the 500,000 Iraqis dead? Has anyone got... So this is my culture. Thailand was doing something intelligent with its money, which didn't include killing 500,000 innocent people. So, well, that's a small clue. So what can you trust the United States? See, trust is segmented on all levels. I trust the United States to be militant. I trust the United States to be arrogant. I trust the United States to lack the intelligence to know it is not intelligent. Meaning, a country that spends 25 times more than the next country anywhere in the world on military spending, when there are no enemies other than the enemies it creates, meaning there were no mass destruction weapons in Iraq after all that hubbub. We spent more than $1 trillion that could have been spent helping the homeless and this and that. Does any of that sound intelligent to you? We murdered 500,000 innocent Iraqis by our own estimates. Does that sound smart? Now, we've induced PTSD, which is the most horrific human state in almost everyone that we've connected with over there. Does that sound intelligent? Now, if a foreign country had come over here and murdered 500,000 innocent Americans and induced PTSD in another 5 million, would any of those seek revenge? Just yes or no, possibly. So we've spent $1 trillion to dehumanize and terrify another country, to induce a small percentage of them to seek revenge, which will fuel the war of terror. Because it is a war of terror. It's not a war on terror. You cannot kill terror by terrifying people. So, can you trust the United States to be idiotic? I think so. Can you trust the United States to make lots of money? I think so. Can you trust the United States to be very productive in terms of turning natural resources into things that most of the time we don't need all that much, and some of the times we do? Yes, I think so. Can we trust the United States to have a phenomenal shopping experience? I think so. If I want to make and buy money and buy things, go to the United States. If I want to smile and be happy and connect with real human beings, go to Thailand. Okay, so what I'm getting at is, first of all, you want a palette of distinctions: cultural, mental, emotional, financial, sexual. So these are dimensions. Then you need areas in that. Do I trust my girlfriend to drive well? I trust her to drive a motorcycle 65% of peak, meaning she could improve, 35%, and that would be beneficial, but she can get the job done. Do I trust her to drive a car? She doesn't have a license. No, I don't. Do I trust that means she's dumb? Not at all. She's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Do I trust that to translate into language fluency? No, I don't, because it doesn't. So if we segment stuff, start with the probability field, look closely, the odds are that a pattern that someone has developed will reveal itself in the first 3 days of interaction if you connect intensely. Number 2, that it will continue unless a force equal or greater than the force that led to that pattern crystallizing comes in. And that we can look at the pattern analysis. We can look at a profile of this type of person, the type of person who will do this versus that, and then we can know that all of that is projection, so it's just probability field unless we take the time to specifically ask and drill in. And it's, of course, much more effective if you're going to date with a partner and you ask to talk with an ex-girlfriend. I think that we continue our habits unless we make a noticeable change. I think that we can prepare and make accommodations for the worst parts of each other if we understand and anticipate them, and we understand that they're not personal. You didn't cheat on me because I'm an unlovable person. You cheat on me because you've cheated on every single girlfriend you've ever spent time with. For more than if you spent time with someone for more than 3 months, you've cheated on them. So should I take this personally? No. But what is personal is, can I deal with that? What does that mean? Why do you cheat? Why is it at the 3-month mark? I'd like to talk with one of your ex-girlfriends. Ooh, I don't want that. Okay, well, you can trust someone who doesn't want you to know to have a secret that they don't want you to know. Because that makes sense. Meaning if you really want to see the skinny on someone, and they say, hey, if you want to meet any of my 3 ex-girlfriends, here they are. We can meet them at a party, or you can talk with them. They're happy to support. They understand my faults, and da-da-da-da-da. And how about meeting some of your ex-boyfriends? Well, if you've got 2 people that say that, you can trust that they're really interested in getting to the bottom of what's going on. Now, if you have someone that never wants, I don't even want you to meet their parent, da-da-da-da-da, well, you've got someone who does not want to be seen. Well, the person who doesn't want to be seen has a strategy of keeping safe certain feelings and experiences that they don't want to face and deal with by controlling information. Well, that's okay. So so what's that information? Because that information will damage the relationship if no one knows about it to prepare for it. And it hits you hard, you take it personally, you don't have context for it, you don't have a backup plan, it can destroy the whole relationship. So I hope this has given a small window into the vast arena. We've covered about 20% of the segmentation of trust, the segmentation of predictability. It's worth noting that most people behave the way they behave for reasons that have very little to do with you most of the time, but that they will exaggerate certain traits that are innate based on past experiences and stuff because of who you are. So some person, like I can be around one woman, and this is a true story. She lied, she smoked, she played all kinds of games. I laughed 700% more around her than I have done around any other human being on the planet. Now, I can laugh. That's part of my nature. But she drew it out with a 700% zoom lens. Do I want to marry her? No. Do I want to date her? No. I don't do well with people who lie and cheat and that. Do I want to laugh with her? Was that good for my health? Amazing. Does that reveal that 99% of people could see a lot more of my laughter if they did a few of the things that she did? Yes. So there's that potential within me. I could be laughing much more right now if I wasn't talking about this. But you see, I'm choosing this video. I'm self-selecting this part of my trait. I'm not laughing as much here. But there are contexts in which I'm laughing every few seconds. And I'm not high. I'm with a particular type of personality. Do you trust that you are that personality? You could be. If you see me laughing 5 times more than I'm, doing here, and we meet, then you're that type of person. So thanks for the time, the exploration. It's been fun. It's so much to learn. Take care.